The Witcher is an action RPG released in October of 2007 from developer CD Projekt Red. The game is based on the fantasy book series of the same name. The Witcher 1 was the start of one of the best video game series of all time, and despite it being viewed as groundbreaking, it was pretty rough around the edges. The gameplay was a tad unconventional and really janky at times, but it was and still is an amazing RPG. A year after the initial launch, The Witcher Enhanced Edition released and brought a lot of changes and quality of life improvements. Funny enough, there was actually an attempt to do a full remake of The Witcher 1 in November of 2008 called The Witcher Rise of the White Wolf, which was also set to bring the game to the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but due to late payments from CDPR, the remake was inevitably canned. While I still consider The Witcher to be an incredible RPG that features a rich narrative where every choice you make has consequences, compared to The Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, the only aspect that really holds up to this day is the story. But luckily, CDPR has us covered, as it was confirmed that The Witcher remake is happening. Check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's dive into all the details. In October of 2022, it was announced that The Witcher remake was in development. This news brought quite a bit of excitement, hype, and cautious optimism. When I first saw the announcement, I immediately thought, how is this going to affect the development of the new Witcher saga? Is that game going to be pushed back now that CDPR is working on yet another game? Well, they're not. The new saga is being developed by CD Projekt Red, and The Witcher remake is in development by another studio. According to the press release, they said this, and I quote, "We are thrilled to announce that The Witcher remake is being worked on." That's right, the game that started it all is being rebuilt from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. The announcement continued on by saying the game is currently in the early stages of development at the Polish studio Fool's Theory, where veteran Witcher staff are involved. We, as CD Projekt Red, are providing full creative supervision. The Witcher remake is what you might know by the codename Canis Majoris. It's still in early development, and we want to ensure that the game is created with the utmost care and attention to detail. Therefore, while we're excited to share the news with you, we want to ask for your patience, as it will be a while until we start talking about this project in detail. So now the question is, who is Fool's Theory and what are their credentials besides their previous employment at CDPR? Well, first we have Jakub Rakash, hopefully that pronunciation is correct, who is the CEO and co-owner of Fool's Theory. Jakub worked at CDPR for 5 years between 2010 and 2015, so Jakub was there to help ship both The Witcher 2 and 3 as a senior quest designer. Now, as for the rest of the studio of about 60 developers, they worked on everything from Baldur's Gate 3 to Divinity Original Sin 2 DLC with Larian Studios. They also helped with Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and even Outriders, which honestly, this is a solid lineup of games, but is that enough to be fully trusted? I personally don't know. And when talking about The Witcher remake as well as the developer of it, CDPR's head Adam Badowski had this to say: "The Witcher is where it all started for us. For CD Projekt Red, it was the first game we made ever, and it was a big moment for us then, going back to this place and remaking this game for the next generation of gamers. To experience it just feels big, if not bigger." It continued by saying collaborating with Fool's Theory on this project is just as exciting, as some of the people there have previously been involved in the Witcher games. They know the source material well, they know how much gamers have been looking forward to seeing the remake happen, and they know how to make incredible and ambitious games. And although it will take some time before we're ready to share more about the game, I know it'll be worth the wait. So getting the Badowski seal of approval is good news, but again, Fool's Theory does have some pretty big shoes to fill. But one of the aspects that really needs a big rework from the original is obviously the combat. The Witcher 1 at its current state is, well, pretty unconventional and quite a bit janky. Combat is an aspect that is criticized in even The Witcher 3, so all this time they really haven't been able to sort it out. That is at least on the Witcher side of things. CDPR has then since improved with Cyberpunk 2077, but either way, one of the struggles that CDPR has had over the years is the combat, so this is an area that I'm really most curious to see how the team at Fool's Theory will tackle it. Like, do they try to make it similar to The Witcher 3? Do they try to just remake the Witcher 1 system and make it a little bit better? Or do they go a step further and just try to change up the combat entirely? With the remake being developed on Unreal Engine 5, I do have some reservations if they try to recreate The Witcher 3's combat. I would almost prefer a completely fresh take. Maybe even use Ghost of Tsushima's combat for inspiration, where the fights feel like a chess match and you have to make sure your stances are correct whenever you're fighting certain enemies. Like, if you've ever played Ghost of Tsushima, you know the combat is the highlight of that game. Like, imagine them using the standoff system from Ghost of Tsushima and then just having it in The Witcher, where it's Geralt the one doing the standoff. Like, that would be so sick, but they likely won't go down that route. Honestly, I think the biggest thing the combat needs is some excitement and precision, and most importantly, depth. The Witcher 1 combat is pretty bad. The Witcher 3 combat is a bit too simple. This is Geralt of Rivia we're talking about. He is a beast. He's a superhuman monster hunter, and that should be shown off in combat. I'm not saying that they have to reinvent the wheel. They could totally use the Witcher 3's combat, or even just an enhanced version of Witcher 1's combat, but I just want more depth in the game, which is why I think having stances like Ghost of Tsushima as well as standoffs would be a pretty awesome addition. Now, if you didn't know, the Witcher Remake is set to be a fully open world RPG, which we learned when the game was initially announced. The original Witcher featured a series of large maps and smaller self-contained areas, but it wasn't a true open world game. The remake, however, will offer an open world experience. Now, I don't believe it's going to be fully seamless, as if you take the start of Witcher 1, it actually takes place in Kaer Morhen for the tutorial, and then once the tutorial is over, it takes place in and around Vizima. Now, if you played The Witcher 3, you know that the only explorable area in Vizima was the Royal Palace, so think of that place, but once you leave the castle, you're in a walled city. In The Witcher 1, you could explore the inner city as well as the outskirts of Vizima. For the remake, they will essentially make Vizima and the surrounding areas a seamless open world experience, which I imagine was their initial vision. However, the areas were likely split initially due to technical limitations. The Witcher 1 used BioWare's Aurora engine, which was used for Neverwinter Nights, so that alone should tell you what kind of work CDPR had to do to achieve the quality of The Witcher 1. Now, one of the best aspects of The Witcher 3, in my opinion, is the open world as well as just the overall exploration. So even if they do a fraction of what they did with The Witcher 3 for The Witcher 1 remake, I have no doubt in my mind that the open world will translate well. Next up, as you know, the original Witcher game suffered from a clunky and unintuitive UI. The inventory management system was just pretty terrible, and it featured a complex alchemy system that frustrated many. Now, if you played the game on PC with mods, you know that the Rise of the White Wolf is basically a required mod on PC. It improves a ton of various aspects like the UI, the combat, but the UI specifically is a place where I do think it needs to be streamlined to make it more user-friendly and more in line with current games. Furthermore, the quest design in the original felt repetitive with a ton of fetch quests and an overall lack of depth. By reworking the quest to include better objectives could be way more engaging, maybe even including multiple ways to approach and complete quests would be beneficial for replayability. With Jakub, the CEO of Fool's Theory, being a quest designer from The Witcher 3, this is the area that I'm guessing will be improved heavily with the new remake. So next up, as you know, this game is being remade with the Unreal Engine 5, and that means the graphics and visual fidelity will be improved. While the graphics in the original were impressive for the engine that they had to work with, they were a bit dated at the time, so updating the visuals and improving the animations and cutscenes would be awesome, which I pretty much guarantee that's going to happen. Now, according to the CEO of Fool's Theory, they emphasize the importance of respecting the original while bringing it to contemporary standards. He also mentioned that some of the bad parts will be reworked or removed, to which Jakub said this, and I quote, "First and foremost, we need an honest, down-to-earth analysis of which parts are simply bad, outdated, and need to be remade, while highlighting the parts that are great, should be retained, or direct key pillars that can't be discarded." Now, when it comes to them removing the quote-unquote bad parts, let's just say a certain card game from the original will likely be reworked or just completely removed for the remake. So with that being said, when could we expect the Witcher remake to be released? Now, as much as I'd love to say the remake is happening soon, the reality is it's going to be quite a while. And according to the president and joint CEO of CD Projekt Red Group, when talking about the release timeline of Project Polaris and the Witcher remake, they said this, and I quote, "Coming back to the Witcher remake and when it will come, yes, it will come after Polaris, the Witcher 4, which is a consequence of how I think about this project. I think that the Witcher remake will be based in big part on technologies from Polaris, so it will be developed partially in parallel to Polaris, but once Polaris is launched, everything for Polaris will be then in the final shape, and it will be partially reused in the remake, and honestly, I think that makes sense. That means they'll be able to take various aspects of the Witcher Polaris or the Witcher 4 or whatever you want to call it, for instance, like the combat as well as some of the other gameplay aspects. Like, they're already going to have the work done, so they might as well use those gameplay systems for the remake. So it makes sense, but it is honestly crazy to think about. Like, we're not going to get the Witcher remake until after the release of Project Polaris, which at this point could be 4 to 5 years from now. So that means the remake likely won't get released until a year, maybe 2 years after that. So there's a very strong possibility that the Witcher 1 won't get released until 2028 or even 2029, possibly even later than that, with a reveal happening a year or so before release. As you know, The Witcher 1 is about a 40 to 50 hour game, so for the team at Fool's Theory to do a proper remake from the ground up using an entirely new game engine, that's going to be a pretty insane undertaking, especially if they decide to go bigger and more expansive with the remake. So the Witcher remake slipping into 2030 wouldn't be surprising. Well guys, that's going to wrap it up with this video. Let me know if you're excited for the Witcher remake. When do you think it's going to get released? And do you think it will live up to the hype and expectations? Are you concerned about it? Let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video and my coverage, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe with the notifications turned turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.